Hello and welcome to another episode of the Construction Corner podcast. I'm Dillon. I'm your host. And guys, today, before we get into it, before we introduce our guest, um, the Construction Corner, I've been doing this for a year and a half. And the whole reason that I started and brought Matt on is to really help you guys throughout the industry. We tackle a lot of tough questions, a lot of things that, all of us want to kind of know a little more, or we talk about behind closed doors and don't necessarily air it in public. And that's what we're here for. We're here to talk about the things that really everyone is talking about, but nobody wants to do it publicly. We're willing to do that, so you can share the show, share our insights. It can come from my mouth for all I care, and share with your friends on some of these kind of hot button issues, hot button topics that we're going to talk about and we have talked about for the last year and a half. So that's really the mission here, is to help everyone throughout the construction industry. Doesn't matter what side of the table you sit on, whether you're an architect, an engineer, a designer, an owner, a GC, a subcontractor. We don't care really where you fit in this industry. We just want more people to really have the tools, the knowledge, the experience to move forward, to help you to progress through the industry, to bring more people into construction. It's a great industry with a lot of space for everybody. And really our ultimate goal here is to build a great America, a great world, and provide, a lot of opportunity for people across construction. So with that, Matt, my friend, how's everything going?
Things are good, Dillon. It's been, I can't complain about the weather this week because it's been really nice. So projects are moving. It's been a very productive 2 weeks. So we're doing well.
Awesome. And guys, so today we're going to talk about pre-con. We're going to talk about the state of staffing and hiring in construction in the market. Gareth McGlynn also hosts the Pre-Construction podcast. We're so happy to have you on. Ultimately, you provide staffing solutions in the estimating side of construction, which I'm sure is a hot button topic and something that we want to get into. But my first question for you is, how in the world did you end up in this niche of construction?
Well, this could be the start and end of it if I start telling you about my journey. First of all, I'd like to thank you for inviting me on. Love what you're doing because it's not been talked about enough. All the topics that you guys touch on are topics that should be talked about much more. And it's something within pre-construction, definitely, and construction as a whole, that we're not doing enough of. We're not talking about the topics. We're not thrashing it out together collaboratively. So thank you for that, guys. How did I get here? Well, first of all, when I was 16, probably best when I was 16, none of my family are in construction. None of my family are in recruitment. None of my parents are entrepreneurs. A couple of my uncles and my grandparents are entrepreneurs. But when I was 16, all I wanted to do was play football, or as you guys call it, soccer. And my parents were like, right, you're in school now, you're in high school, as you would call it, and they say, right, you're gonna go now and you're gonna do your degree. And I went, nah, I'm sure. Why do I need to do my degree? I'm going to be a professional soccer player and I earn millions. And they were like, no, you're not. Well, they didn't tell me that. They said, oh, okay, fair enough. Yeah, we won't stop you. We'll just let you go. But one thing we're going to do before we allow you to fail is you got to go and get a degree. Once you get a degree, you can do what you want. So that's what I did. And I picked engineering, believe it or not. So it was a electronic electrical engineering type degree. Didn't love it. Was kind of getting through it. I was playing professional football at the time, professional soccer, along with my degree, which was I quite enjoyed it. So did that. Got my degree. After my degree, played professional soccer for about 13 years, up until I was about 29. Then at 29, I decided, yeah, I need to look elsewhere. Soccer's not gonna pay the bills when I'm into my 40s and into my 50s. So did a bit of traveling around Asia and Australia and New Zealand. Fell into recruitment. Worked in a little bit of construction as well, out in Australia, up in the mines, within iron ore and oil and gas with Rio Tinto and BHP. Really liked that, really enjoyed that, but I never felt satisfied with the social aspect of being an engineer. It wasn't fast paced enough. There wasn't enough human interaction. Really sought that. Somebody told me about recruitment, went straight into it. Found in recruitment, stayed in Australia for 2 years, working in recruitment. Through a family illness, I had to come closer to home. So myself and my wife, girlfriend at the time, myself and my wife decided, right, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll move closer to home. So we were given the opportunity of New York, London, or Dublin. Obviously, when you give a lady a chance to live in New York, there's only one winner. In New York, worked for a company for 2 years, and then saw a massive gap within only pre-construction in the construction recruitment staffing sector, and started up our own firm.
So just a real quick aside, my wife is a geologist, limestone mines. So Rio Tinto is, for those of you who don't know, Rio Tinto is one of the largest mining companies in the world. They own some of the largest copper mines. They do a ton of stuff, which is pretty cool in everything that they do. And then my background is electrical engineering. So a lot of synergies.
A lot of common ground there. I like that.
On that side. But in that, like, what was the gap that you saw in that pre-construction side of things?
So I work with two of the largest recruitment firms in the world, and great companies, fantastic companies, really efficient what they do. But what happens is you're sitting in a construction desk, a construction company calls you up and they go, I need a project manager, superintendent, project engineer, estimator, and pre-construction manager. 5 things. Right away, as a company, they go for the low-hanging fruit and they go for the easy money. The easy money is not finding a pre-construction manager or not finding a senior estimator. The easy money is getting a project manager, superintendent, or project engineer. They go and fill the 3 roles and then they move on to the next client. It's just not serviced. And that's why there's a huge lack of people. And people saying, listen, there's a gamut of reasons why there's not enough people in pre-construction. But essentially, it just wasn't being serviced from a staffing point of view. So we found a niche that we called the company Niche SSP, and we went after it. And thankfully, we haven't looked back since. We're as busy as we've ever been, and we're loving it. Great people to work with.
I 100% agree with that, Gareth. And previously to where I'm at now, I worked for a larger GC and I ran the pre-construction department, and it was an estimator, it was almost impossible.
Yeah, exactly. And another thing as well, Matt, what was wrong, because it wasn't being staffed, you wouldn't believe that what a recruiter does on a day-to-day basis, how much influence they have on a young engineer who rings them up and asks them questions about the industry and where they should go career-wise, how they should upskill themselves, what they want to do long-term. They asked all these questions and they just it just wasn't being talked about. There wasn't enough media out there. There wasn't enough content. There wasn't enough, obviously, within the degrees, the masters, all these, even in high school. I mean, pre-construction estimating is maybe 1 or 2 modules of a degree. It's literally a box ticking exercise. Get through it and get to the good stuff. Whereas, and we'll probably go into it later, it's much more than that. And it's to me, the single most important decisions are made within pre-construction, and it's vital.
That's the stage for a good project, or the reverse.
Yeah, exactly. It can make or break you as a company. If an estimator goes low and gets it wrong, you're in the pocket for 2 or 3 million on the concrete or whatever they messed up. So it's so vital, and it's even more vital because of the way the construction industry looks at cost management, quantity surveying, estimating. It's done completely differently in Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, UK, Ireland, and most of Europe. The quantity surveyor, as it's called over there, has got so much more control over the project and the costs, and very rarely do you see these blowouts like you see in the US.
So, and you were kind of touching on what I was going to ask next. That's why I really was intrigued when I heard about your firm when, I was on Gareth's podcast back in February, I think. But the pre-con manager or the estimator, whatever you want to call them, it's really a thankless position, right? Because if you get it right, the project goes on and it's successful and the PM gets all the accolades. If you get it wrong, it's your worst day ever. But there's never a period where the estimator gets put up on that platform and says, hey, congrats to the guy that built the project in his head first. So, how do you, obviously you're very successful at what you do and you get a lot of people coming to you, but do you see, is it a constant influx of people really truly wanting to go into estimating or into the pre-con?
Yeah, the honest answer is no, especially at that junior level. When I talk to project engineers, APMs, they ring me up and they go, I've seen your stuff on LinkedIn. Tell me a little bit about. They always ask me for salary advice. A lot of people ring me up. We do a salary survey, but it only looks at pre-construction engineer, project manager, senior estimator, pre-construction manager. There's no APM, project manager, but they always ring me up anyway and say to me, ask me, and they constantly ask questions about pre-construction and estimating. But it's there's a huge lack of people going in there, but everyone seems to be come out of college and go straight into the field. And to be honest with you, general contractors are responsible for that because that's what they want. They want people to go to as a project engineer and an APM. And to be honest with you, historically, that's probably been a good thing because you understand and you get a visual of how a project goes together and you learn on the field. Now that we've got 2D, 3D, 4D, all these modules, all this simulation, all the mistakes that have been learned, you don't need to go on the site. You can actually look through previous projects, what you've been put together, what's the clash detection correcting it, or read the notes, and you can actually see the problems that have occurred. And that's where we've got to tap into, because a lot of people want to get involved in construction, but they don't want to go to site. So there's got to be another option. Obviously, VDC and BIM is another option, but even those guys prefer to go on site as well first. So there's got to be another option to attract them, and especially the high tech guys, the guys that you got to start competing with Facebook, Amazon, Apple for the real highly technical guys, because pre-construction data, manipulating this, presenting, using all these pre-construction technologies that are coming out, you need highly efficient, good tech people within your company. The future of construction is pre-construction. The future of pre-construction is talent and technology.
I like that a lot. And I think, Dillon is very heavy into the tech side too. I'm not so much, but I see it coming. And to have talent like that on a team is going to be a huge advantage.
That's right. And it's going to keep everyone else around, because all the guys that are doing the 12-hour shifts and doing all the mundane jobs that can be done, they can be automated. Let's be honest, automated to a certain degree technology is never going to take over. Let's be straight about that. It's always the talent and the brains. They're always going to be working side by side. They're never going to be let run the show. But the capacity deficit, the hospitals, the schools, the roads, the bridges, the homes that have to be built over the next 2 decades is humongous. And we're already stretched. You guys know that we're stretched so far. It's only going to get worse. And I tell you, the pre-construction and estimating world is only going to get worse. Because of obviously the lack of projects that went through 2020, 2021, people were bidding 4 or 5 jobs a month. They're now bidding 4 jobs a week. There's no way that the quality of those jobs are good, and there's no way that the people bidding them and estimating them are enjoying their work.
Yeah, you're going to see burnout rates through the roof if you're not already.
Exactly. And we're just going to lose people. We're going to lose people from pre-construction to the field, or we're going to lose people from pre-construction into all these tech companies or pre-construction technology companies, or just away from the industry altogether. And then that's going to have a knock-on effect on actually trying to recruit people.
Man, I agree on so many of these points. The thing that I see that, especially in construction, and this goes, both sides of the table, is people typically aren't willing to pay for top talent because they've seen that, one guy can do it and we need this job done, and a guy's a guy is a guy. And what I think it's forgotten or maybe just lost in looking at technology is that one guy or girl who is just extremely smart, talented, creative, and what they can produce is going to outweigh maybe 10 or 100 people, right? And what they can do on the tech side. Because if you start to automate it or have processes, systems they put in place, they design, they build for a given company that can now do a lot of work where it can bid those 4 jobs a week seamlessly, or it can win an extra job a week, a month, whatever. What's that worth to the company on the other side of it? If they're able to effectively and profitably bid jobs, clearly defined scope across those projects and allow companies to win more, how much is that person worth, especially in a bigger company, when you're bidding, a given job could be $100 million and you bid, let's say, one of those a month, right? So you're bidding $1 billion worth of projects. If your company can handle that type of workload, what's that worth in profit on the other side of it? 10%, it's $100 million if you win them and you can deliver it, and scale that accordingly for your company, right? For a $10 million firm, that could be an extra $100K in net to the bottom line, right? Or $1 million in net to the bottom line. And I think sometimes that gets forgotten. And, if you can profitably do these things to win jobs, to move your company forward to where you can do this, and you're not getting anybody behind that person, right? If they quit, you're screwed because no one else knows how to run those systems.
Yeah, 100%. And what you just touched on, Dillon, to be honest with you, a lot of the big guys have already made the decision. The Turners, the Skanskas, these guys, Mortensen, these guys are way ahead. They have made the decision 7, 8, 9 years ago by technology. They've got their own R&D. It's the mid-level guys that haven't really got on the technology kind of bandwagon. Those guys are going to get left behind. And as the capacity deficit and as the projects keep coming in, they're just going to be bidding everything. They're going to be bidding everything. They're going to be completely lost. They're going to be bidding projects they've know very little about in different sectors that they normally wouldn't bid on. And they'll be wondering, well, I built schools. Why am I not getting any schools anymore? Because the other guys are just more efficient. They're more tech savvy. They're presenting better. The owners, the developers, the architects are using the similar technologies. These are the guys that are going to get burnt because there's no more schools. So they're going to go into light industrial. They're going to try their hand at office buildings, and they're going to get that wrong. And it's just one bad decision just snowballs into multiple bad decisions. Then you lose loads of people. I hear about it all the time. I get one call from a GC or a guy at a GC saying this and this is going wrong. It's 18 months of constantly just people drip feeding out of there, and all the best people leave first. And it's sad because, I mean, we've seen it happen before. I mean, we're so far behind. Well, not we, but the mid-level GCs, some of them are so far behind. All you got to do is watch the big GCs. You don't have to spend their money, but just gradually watch what they're doing, watch what they're doing well, and just not copy it, but just get on board with it. And now the other part of that, and I want to kind of preface this, is there's a lot of shiny toys out there, a lot of shiny technology that is just no good for certain people. And that to me, that is one. I mean, I'm trying to solve the talent side of it, but to me, that is a platform that needs to be solved. There needs to be a user group of users within technology, not salespeople, not the pre-construction technology companies themselves. I'm talking about user, so we can go through them all, the 6 or 7 that are out there. And because majority of people ring me and ask me, Gareth, what do you think of this technology? I don't want to start mentioning, I don't know if you can, but this pre-construction technology. And I go, well, I don't know very much about it, but I know 3 guys that have just implemented and they've been involved in it now for 2 or 3 years. Pick their brain, find out what challenges they had, find out if it's good for you, that fits in with your workflow, your size of project, your industry, because there's loads of good stuff, but it just doesn't fit everyone, and especially the workflows. And if you get that wrong, if you don't do your due diligence, and I'm not saying about doing demos or asking the salespeople within these companies, or that's not how to go about it. I mean, from my point of view, I'm in a group of probably around 400 recruitment owners throughout Australia, New Zealand, UK, Europe, and the US, and it's just a constant bed of information all the time. Any of my technology, straight up in that group, guys, I'm thinking about doing this. Pros, cons. This is the size of company I am. This is what I do. This is how I spend my time. What's the cost, and is it beneficial for me? And that to me is missing. That's a key part of and it's kind of like the pre-construction technology companies won't make this right. They're not going to start a group to do this, because it just looks wrong. It's up to the and again, it's up to the pre-construction technology enthusiasts within these companies willing to share their information. This idea that I'm not telling the guy next door what I'm doing, that's got to go. We will not move forward, and we will all be put under so much pressure by not doing that. I tell you what, the BIM VDC guys are excellent at it. These guys all talk to one another, no matter if they're in a consultancy or they're in a GC, and they all make each other's life better. And then they look better internally, and everybody wins. We're able to build bigger, better, safer projects. And the pre-construction world needs to get off their high horse and learn. And the whole construction industry, operations, whether it's robots on site, whether it's 3D scanning, whatever it may be, we need to get off our high horse, start talking with one another and helping each other.
I couldn't agree more, man. It's all about collaboration, because at the end of the day, everybody that I'm used to, that I'm around, everyone's so secretive. No one wants to talk because they're afraid of somebody finding the secret sauce. Well, the reality is we're all bidding the same shit. Okay. We all have the same numbers. We might change a fee here and there, but there's nothing spectacularly different about the way we approach the market other than our culture and intrinsic value. So to boost that collaboration, you're right. It will do nothing but benefit the industry as a whole. It's absolutely necessary, and it doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, and there is no secret sauce. The difference between each companies are the people. So it's up to the owners to create the culture and get innovation in the technology and get all these things right. You will automatically attract the best people, and the best people, I don't care who they are or who you think they are, the best people talk to everyone and help everyone out. That is the best people, internally, externally, it doesn't matter. And that will be the differentiation between a good company and a great company. And it was grand because everything was going at a decent pace. The pace is going to start picking up, and you're going to see in the best market, they will survive, but they're not going to make the margins and the profitability and create the culture and the environment that they really should.
And one thing to note too in construction, right, is if you make a bad decision, you're not going to see it for 18 months. Right? It's not going to come home to roost for 18 months. And at the rate that you turn over, an estimator, if they're only there for 2 years, they didn't learn enough, and they're not there enough for internal data. And if you're not implementing or reapplying the data that you do have into your newer projects, you're not learning anything, right? There's no previous historical knowledge that's being applied to the next project so that you can bid more effectively or staff it better, or like everything that goes into that project. You're not taking everything that you learned from past projects, the data, the information that you do have, and spend some time to do this. And I get that we run from fire to fire, project to project to project to try to just keep pace. But far too often, you never do anything with that data. You just run to the next thing. And this doesn't help you to move forward as a company. You need some people that are dedicated to like thinking time to, they might be a quote overhead position, but the amount of money that they're going to save you in the long term, even if that's you as the CEO, you need to be doing some thinking. If you're an executive, you need to be like not just in the weeds all the time, but to look forward and see what's next, right? Like everything Gareth is talking about, where you're bidding so many projects, there's a huge deficit. There's going to be plenty of work for everybody out there to go after. Frankly, we don't have enough people to build the stuff that is in the pipe now. So projects aren't necessarily the problem. It's how are you going to effectively execute on them with the people that you do have, right? You're fighting a war. It's not the war that you choose. It's the army that you're given, right? Yeah. And so you've got to learn to fight with the people that you do have, and to, maybe you need to make some recruits, something outside of a typical construction background, so that you can, again, execute at a higher level and think differently than how we have been. Is really the whole point here in this show. Is the way you've done things has gotten you to this point. to get you to the next thing. To, again, if you're bidding 4 projects a week, that's exponential growth in the number of projects out there. I mean, you could just look at housing growth, the amount of commercial projects this year. To do the new level of build that we're going to be required as an industry, you can't do things the way you used to, right? To meet the new level of demand that this industry is dictating, the market is dictating right now. So how are you going to do that? And I mean, you got to spend some time to think about it and then get the people to deliver on that new vision.
The only way to do it is technology. Literally is. We're not going to be able to create, hopefully we'll be able to keep the flow of people coming into construction, and that'll be great. But if you look, Dillon, right, 2020 was unprecedented. It gave more construction owners, people in construction, the most time within a year to be able to think. Pre-construction technology firms, the good ones, never had better years. They all bought in. So they had time, they paused, and they thought about it. And they gone, right, I need to invest. Now is the time. Now that's grand. The best time to make a decision is today, because see the best companies that invested 5 or 6 years ago. Where do you see the growth that those companies have had? And I've seen it already this year. They are knocking it out of the park. It is incredible. They've upskilled their pre-construction and estimating team very cleverly through 2020, but they've kind of locked on to the technology side, and on getting both right, it's like a rocket. It really is. And then you just got to find the delivery guys in operations. But if you get it right, if you have the blueprint right, the cost right, the schedule right, everything's right. The operations guy don't like me saying this, but it's a steering job on site. It is a steering job. I fight with them all the time. It is a steering job if you get everything up right.
It is. You have to build the recipe before you can bake the cake, and formulating the recipe is the really difficult part in this. And I get in the same arguments all the time. As a pre-con guy, I'll tell my project managers that, like, listen, it's easy when it gets to you. It's not simple. You gotta pay attention. You gotta be good at what you do. You gotta have your own nuances, but the crazy hard work has to be done ahead of time, or else you have no chance of success when you get there.
That's right. Yeah.
And so, but with that, I want to kind of switch gears a little bit. You're in a unique position for a guest on our show anyways, in that you're in the staffing industry. So you are probably clued into the pulse of the job market and the labor market, probably more than myself or Dillon, to be quite honest with you. We hear a lot, we talk about it a lot, but what do you see is the current climate of construction jobs in general? Are there more applicants than there are positions, or is it completely reversed, as we hear all the time, that there's empty jobs and no one to fill them?
So to be honest with you, Matt, my knowledge is purely pre-construction. I can't really talk for operations.
Sure.
But from what I'm seeing in pre-construction, there is so many jobs out there. I have never been busier. We've actually stopped taking clients on and jobs in because we've just got too much. We're doing retain now, so the clients have got to pay up front for us to buy our time to fill the position. I mean, these guys are waiting, and I think Dillon touched on it earlier. These guys are waiting 9 and 10 months to fill a position. How much business and how many bad mistakes has been made in those 9 months? And they won't pay us a 25% fee for those 9 months. It is bananas. I just can't understand it. And again, it's like the technology. If they're not willing to invest in technology now, they're going to be left behind. If they're not going to be able to invest in staff right now, they're going to be left way behind. But it's crazy. I mean, we were busy 2020. The smart companies were coming to us and they were saying, we need to hire strategic people. Now, obviously, the demand and the quality that they were looking for last year was top notch. These guys weren't guys that were getting let go. They were real game changers. And we got them in there last year. But this year, 2021, it's like, I need people on site because they know how difficult it is. And as you say, the rest of the team are just getting burnt out. And to be honest with you, the people that ring us up and say, I want to change jobs. Why do you want to change jobs? Culture, burnout. It's just too much. I see my GC, they're just bidding anything and everything. It's spiraling out of control. We're not lit with a couple of estimators, we're not winning anything. I said, how can you not be winning anything? It's one of the best construction markets that's ever been. I mean, the next 10 years, if you're not making money in the next 10 or 15 years, As a construction owner, you may pack it in now.
Why do you think they're trying to save $1 to lose 10?
Okay, listen, it's all different. It's all different. I work with the top 5 ENRs right down to the one man band. It's all subjective. You've got internal bureaucracy, red tape, trying to save some money, and then you've got other guys that are just unbelievable to work with. Like, they're proper partners. They come to us, they ask us questions. We do more work for them that we probably should do. It's not about just getting the right person. It's about, they find out about salaries for their internal employees. They find out about the market. They're constantly calling me up going, listen, what's happening? I just had a guy, he's got this much experience. I'm just about to make him an offer. Am I going too high? Am I going too low? Generally, they're going too low. But I'm saying, just pay him that extra 5,000. He's only going to come looking for it in 6 months or 12 months or 2 years. Just pay him and then worry about it. But get him in, get him working, find out a little bit more about him. Then you'll be able to review it in 24 months whenever he comes to you and has changed your business or won you 200 million worth of work, But no, generally the people we work with are generally passive candidates. So we do a lot of relocations. We relocate a lot of good people from across the country that are moving for genuine reasons. It's all about the need for us. If somebody rings me up and says, I'm on 100K and I'm looking for 120, and that's the only reason he's moving, and say, don't do it. Go back and ask your boss for a pay rise. It's not a good enough reason to. If he hasn't convinced his own boss to give him 120, then he's probably not worth it.
Yeah, I could see that two ways, right? Like, it's some owners are just stingy, and aren't willing to pay. And then because, like you're saying, like $5,000, it's a lot to a person, right? But the company on the other side of it, especially being in that estimating department, is pennies. It's nothing. Yeah. And they're not willing to part with, they're trying to save $1 to lose 10.
Yeah. No, Dillon, listen, when you're in this side of it and my side of it, internally, I know with my own staff, if I give them all a 20 grand raise, then I'd be in a bit of bother. So there is a happy medium there. But I think this is where long-term strategy and long-term decision-making is so important. You got to be aiming for 10, 15 years. I did a podcast with Will Center there, the VP of down in Raleigh of ScanScan. They made the decision 8 years ago about pre-construction data. They are so far ahead of it. It's incredible. Their technology is actually way ahead of the people that are coming in. So they can't. There's no one else in the market doing what they want to do. So they need to hire a pre-construction data engineer, but it doesn't exist. So they've got to train people up. So this is the evolution of pre-construction teams that I'm trying to prepare companies for. It's not just senior estimators in pre-construction anymore. It's data engineers. It's people constantly manipulating the data, updating the data, working with the data, and making the pre-construction managers and the senior estimators do the stuff, the high touch stuff that they're really good at, the value engineering, the client relationship, the architect, the big changes that need to be made.
Absolutely. Gareth, where can they find you?
LinkedIn. Yeah, always on LinkedIn. Gareth McGlynn, LinkedIn. Drop me a message, drop me a call, text. My numbers are all on there. If you need anything, I try and concentrate on the low end, so that the guys that are in university or just out of university, especially for like advising them and just giving them a kind of a black and white rundown, and touch with me, drop me a message on LinkedIn.
Gareth, I'm going to throw one from complete left field here. I'm glad you brought up your career in soccer and in football. So this last weekend, my wife and I, and candidly my 3 boys, all watched Green Street Hooligans again. How accurate is that movie to the European football scene?
So in the time that was filmed, probably 10 years previous to the time it was filmed, I don't know any dates. That's what was going to English football matches. You didn't see any families. You didn't see any. It was male 22 to 40 skinheads. It was fun. It was fun. It was passionate. It was It was proper cult stuff. And listen, it's still there. It's great, but it's not as bad as that now. No.
Okay, fair enough.
Good show.
I love it. Love it.
Good show. Obviously dramatized a little bit, but
Of course,
good show.
yeah.
It touched on a few things, but yeah, the passion's unbelievable. I mean, in England, that's why the Premiership's the best league in the world. It's a passion from the fans. I mean, we've saw it over the last 12, 14, 16 months with no fans. It's every sport without fans is useless. It shouldn't exist.
That's dismal.
Yeah, and the traditions, especially at like Old Trafford and some of those stadiums, are amazing.
Unbelievable. And they did the right thing. They all upgraded their stadiums. During the lockdown, they made good decisions. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting back to Anfield.
Wow, there's a couple good football bars here in the Detroit area. So if you ever make it this way, let me know. We'll hook up and have a few pints and watch a match.
Yeah, well, that was the whole idea of the Pre-Construction podcast, was visiting all my clients in all the different cities. But obviously, after about 3 episodes, it became virtual. But I'll be back on the trail, so I'll definitely hit you up with that.
Good deal. Gareth, I greatly appreciate the time and you coming on, man. It was good to talk to you again. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt and Dillon. Keep up the good work.
Yeah, thank you, Gareth. Guys, I mean, we covered a lot of stuff here today. Gareth, we'll probably have you back at some point to talk about staffing and really what is going on in the pre-construction world. It's a huge part of it that I think, as we talked about today, is totally under-realized, underappreciated, and frankly, undervalued and understaffed. So as we move forward through all this, guys, it's talking to your compatriots, to the different firms, the people in your seat across companies, across the country, and even in this day and age across the world. It's to learn what you can from others, not be afraid to share anything. Again, there's no real secret sauce. Your content is your content. We're all kind of doing the same thing. It's how you execute, what your systems and processes are. And as Gareth mentioned, it's culture, right? Can you work as a team? Is your team well-oiled, well-dialed in, and can work effectively together? You can have the best system and process in the world, but if nobody follows it, it really doesn't matter. So dial those things in, share information, be willing to go out and find it, look for it, spend some time thinking, and really up in your game when it comes to all the tech side of everything, as Gareth mentioned, from data science to VDC to BIM, the whole gamut. You're going to need it moving forward, especially with the volume of work that is really coming down the pike. So with that, guys, that's going to be this episode of the Construction Corner podcast. Until next time.